Biff will do capital report and then Scudieri.
Years as the city's auditor, Ohio Democrats have struggled to attract high-profile candidates to fill out their statewide slate this year. Daniel Barnett, ONN News.
The state transportation department is urging people to plan ahead for the winter storm approaching. Travel could be hazardous Thursday and Friday in parts of the state. I'm Dave James on the Ohio News Network.
Calls and conversations continue in less than 3 minutes as the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues after this.
I'm not buying till I checked on Ford.
Most of us are faced with uncertainty every day. Your job, your finances, sporting events, schooling for your children, and so much more. With so much uncertainty surrounding you, there is one auto dealership that you can be certain about, and that's Doan Ford. You can be certain that you always get a great deal and the best service afterwards. Being in business for over 50 years has given Doan Ford the reputation of being a strong, reliable dealership. Be certain. Choose Doan Ford. Online at DoanFord.com.
I'm not buying till I check Doan Ford.
Get organized with Dakota Shelving at Menards. Dakota Shelving has the perfect storage solution with a variety of sizes and 8 attractive finishes. Right now, an 8-foot long, 11 3/4 by 3/4 inch shelf is just $9.99 after $5 rebate. Keep your space tidy with Designer's Image Cube Storage Organizers. Get an 11-inch fabric drawer free after rebate now at Menards. Savings are mail-in rebate. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Save big money at Menards.
Being young protects us kids from a lot of things.
Like paying bills.
And boring meetings.
Blech.
But there's one big thing being young doesn't protect us from. That's COVID.
Since August, COVID has made an average of 100,000 kids a week sick.
But now, kids 5 to 11 can get a vaccine tailored to give us the best protection.
For me.
For us.
For kids.
We can do this. Find a vaccine near you at vaccines.gov, paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Millions plan for retirement online. Estimate your future benefits, apply for retirement, and manage your benefits all from the comfort of your home. And give yourself the freedom to do what you want offline. Social Security's online services help put you in control with secure access to your information anytime, anywhere, allowing you to spend more time with family, friends, or simply just enjoying the day. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
For all of your IT needs, visit OmniPerforms.com. Omni Strategic Technologies, the only IT company that the Watchdog trusts. Stand by. You're back to live and local programming in moments on the Watchdog.
From the Watchdog, here is your local weather forecast for your Tuesday. Mostly sunny, high of 45. Tonight, clouds will be on the increase, low of 30. And for your Wednesday, expect mostly cloudy conditions with a chance of afternoon rain and a high of 45. And that's your local weather forecast from the Watchdog.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors.
Live from the Robinson Auto Group studios, this is the Valley's longest-running morning show, the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe from WKKX and WVLY.
27 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport, 19 degrees here at my home studios in the Elm Grove section of Wheeling, and we're looking at about 22 degrees at the Robinson Auto Group studios downtown Wheeling in the heart of the Ohio Valley, up to around 46 for the day today. Winter storm watch officially in effect for the weekend, well, beginning on late Wednesday into and through Friday. Winter storm watch from the National Weather Service says 3 to 6 inches of snow or ice. Aaron says we're more likely to get ice than snow, and probably not that much in this immediate area. So we'll be keeping an eye on that throughout the week this week. It is 8:10 here on the Watchdog Morning Show. If you want to join me, you can do that. 304-214-1600 is our text line. 304-214-1600. Feel free to use that as always. Also, our CityNet hotline is 304-232-8255. If you want to call in and chat, you can do that. Some of the things we're talking about: are you willing to be your own dasher, your own delivery service? Domino's is, for at least a while, trying to encourage you to drive up, pick up your own pizza, and deliver it to your house. They'll give you a little discount for it. Domino's is a group that has always been big on delivery and has never used a third-party delivery service, but times are tough, and so they're changing things. With the Super Bowl coming up, they've got to come up with some other plans. We'll talk about that. West Virginia Senate debating cutting the number of weeks you can collect unemployment. At the same time, they're talking about extending unemployment for those terminated by vaccine mandates. Our State House reporter Brad McElhaney explains. Local lawyer Teresa Torreseva tossed her hat into the ring this weekend as a surprise candidate for a seat in the State House. We'll talk to her about why she did that. And the Dems are talking about letting Manchin write his own version of Build Back Better. Trump is ranting and threatening over the last election, and the U.S. and Russia are still spatting over Ukraine. Tom Squitieri, our national correspondent, in just a handful of minutes with all the details on that. But first, here at 8:12, let's see what's happening down in Charleston. It's time for our morning Capital Report.
This is the Metro News Capital Report, brought to you by AARP West Virginia. AARP is your ally for real possibilities in the Mountain State. Connect on social media at AARPWV or learn more at aarp.org/WV. Today's report in 60 seconds.
AARP is your ally for real possibilities in the Mountain State, a wise friend and fierce defender for everyone in West Virginia as you get older. With 250,000 members and communities in all 55 counties, AARP is working every day for you. We have financial tools and health guides to help make sure the good things in your life live as long as you do. We're working to protect your hard-earned money, sharing tips and tools to help you spot frauds and scams. At the same time, AARP is advocating on behalf of West Virginians 50+ and their families at the state capitol. Every day, we're supporting family caregivers, fighting for things like better high-speed internet access across the state. And we're sharing the latest coronavirus information to help keep you and your family safe. Everyone in the Mountain State needs someone in their corner. That someone is AARP. For more information, connect with us on social media at AARP West Virginia or find us online at aarp.org/WV.
A bill that would reallocate county magistrates in West Virginia will be considered by a subcommittee of the House of Delegates Judiciary Committee. The bill would base magistrates on a county's population instead of by caseload, which currently determines how many magistrates a county has. The bill says a county would get a magistrate for every 15,000 residents. That would keep the current level of 158 magistrates in place, although the reallocation would give more populous counties more magistrates and take away some from others. The bill sponsor is Putnam County Delegate Jeff Foster. He says the current allocation isn't fair, mainly because the legislature has been unwilling to deal with it.
Specifically, the House and Senate's fault because we haven't passed anything. We've been told to change this allocation, and we haven't done it. And when you have situations where even on caseload basis, I mean, you've got 2,500 cases per magistrate in one county versus 224 cases per magistrate. And that's right now.
Exactly where a bill will ultimately go that would cut magistrates from certain counties remains to be seen, likely not popular in an election year. The subcommittee will make recommendations to the full House Judiciary Committee. I'm Jeff Jenkins on Metro News, the voice of West Virginia.
Who are the toughest men and women in the Ohio Valley? It's the 41st Annual Budweiser Tough Man Contest, co-sponsored by WTOV9, Wheeling, Ohio County CVB, Thomas Auto Centers, The World Gym, Jill's Gentlemen's Club, A Class Act, and ICR Equipment Rental Sales and Supply. Coming February 18th and 19th to Wheeling's West Banco Arena. See up to 100 men and women slug it out for thousands in prize money. Tickets are available at the West Banco Arena box office or online at westbancoarena.com. Or to charge by phone, call 800-514-3849. It's the 41st Annual Budweiser Tough Man Contest. Coming February 18th and 19th to Wheeling's West Banco Arena. And if you're planning to stay in Wheeling on the Tough Man weekend, the Wheeling, Ohio County CVB is offering special hotel rates for Tough Man fighters, ring girls, and fans. For details, go to WVToughman.com. That's WVToughman.com.
Shop Menard's full selection of over 7,000 interior lights. Find your style with Patriot Lighting's great selection of unique styles and finishes, like our Samuel Lighting collection. The vintage industrial design comes in a bold bronze finish with clear glass shades that show off the vintage style bulbs. Add rustic elegance today with a Samuel 5-light chandelier, on sale just $149.99. Save big money with Patriot Lighting now at Menards.
Save big money at Menards.
You make 35,000 decisions every day. Are your gambling decisions good ones? If you struggle with a problem with gambling, call 1-800-589-9966 for free confidential support. Do you have a loved one who struggles with a problem with gambling? This 24/7 helpline also provides resources on how to support a loved one who may need help. Call 1-800-589-9966 or visit beforeyoubet.org.
Sometimes the best time to prune trees is when they're dormant or with no leaves on them. For ISA certified arborists, it helps them see what branches may need to be pruned or removed. Dormant season pruning can also help lessen problems associated with insects and diseases and help create structurally stronger trees that can better handle heavy wet snows or ice buildup. Contact an ISA certified arborist to get the best professional advice on keeping your trees healthy and safe. Go to treesforohio.org. That's trees, the number 4, ohio.org.
Follow us on Facebook for the latest news, show updates, podcasts, alerts, and live video streams from the Valley's only network dedicated to local, community-driven talk radio, The Watchdog.
Watch out! He could climb on his soapbox at any time. The Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues.
Hey, it's time to chat with our national correspondent, Tom Spittieri, this morning. Tom, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. How you doing? How you doing today?
We're trying to figure out if we're going to get a big storm this weekend or not. Got a winter storm watch in effect, and the National Weather Service says 3 to 6 inches of snow and ice, and our local guys are going, not going to be that bad. So we're trying to figure out what to expect for the weekend.
Good luck. Good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Tom, it seems like we can't get away from Joe Manchin, or Democrats can't get away from Joe Manchin. Manchin made it clear he was not going to support Build Back Better. Then I saw a story this week that said some of the Democrats are saying, just let Manchin write his own bill and we'll just go with whatever it is that he wants to write. And I'm still of the belief, I don't think Manchin's going to get, I don't think he's going to be involved in this. He said what he wanted to say and he's done with it, I think, but I don't know.
Yeah, it was an interesting story yesterday. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, she was on an interview on a show with Politico, and she said that she thinks that Manchin is, quote, gettable, unquote, on a revised Build Back Better package. And I think we will get him. I think this is going to happen. She said, now, the interview doesn't, they don't go into detail as why she thinks that way, but I can't believe that. I think he's made it pretty clear on that. The other thing I said along that I thought was interesting, and I was thinking about you right away, is there's this big movement now on Capitol Hill in the Senate to have a bipartisan bill to have an election college reform, okay? Bipartisan election reform, okay? Not voting rights so much, but election reform. And it's bipartisan. Now, Manchin's not part of the bipartisan team, but he says that that's on a hot track right now, meaning this movement, okay? And I thought to myself, now he's going to say that, and that sounds positive coming from him, right? So it's going to get Democrats very excited that maybe he'll be on board with this election reform bill. Now, by the way, Kristen Semina is part of this sort of group of 15 or so bipartisan group working on this bill. So, they get all excited because anytime he says anything that's not negative, they're going to think he's on board. Maybe he will be on this one. Maybe this is something he can embrace. But like you're saying, on the other thing, they just need to move on. And actually, I'm thinking this is the kind of thing you need to do, is sort of get him and Semina and all the other Democrats sort of back on the same page on issues they can agree with. You and I talked about this 2 or 3 weeks ago. There are issues that the party members can agree on, and this might be one of them. So that's my thought on it.
They just keep coming back to Manchin and keep thinking that somehow they're going to push him in one direction or another, either overtly or quietly, and get him to change his mind or revise things. Like I said, I saw, I forget who it was, but couple of Democrats this week said, just give him the pen and let him write the bill. Whatever he writes, we'll go with it. That doesn't strike me as what he's going to do.
No, that doesn't strike me as good politics either, because that just sets a precedent that's really not good for party. I think, again, going back to what I just said, you have this bipartisan thing on election reform, electoral reform, I want to say, not election reform, electoral reform. And I think there's going to be measures where he will be interested in, and then you bring him in, as you do with every other senator. A good operation talks to all your members, in this case the Democrats, all 50 of them, there's 50 Republicans. You talk to them and say, here's where we are so far. Now, again, it looks like, if I read the reports correctly on it, this is just about, they're going to come out with this bipartisan group may come out with some suggestions tonight, to share with all the other senators. And okay, so that's how you do it. You get two sides together on something that where they can agree as a starting point and see how far you can go and get people on board. And Manchin might go, he would probably support something like this. I don't know him as well as you, of course, but if you believe what he just said, and there's people who are skeptics of that because of what he said on and off before. But in regard to Build Back Better, Howard, you're absolutely right. I mean, that one, they did that. It's not happening with him. Find some other things where you can move forward in this election year for Democrats.
And I think folks need to look at some recent polling done in West Virginia. Now, some of it, I would agree, has been done by folks who are opposed to Build Back Better to begin with. So the polling needs to be taken a look at with that in mind. But at least 2 polls I've seen in the past week in West Virginia suggest that West Virginians are not behind Build Back Better. James Carville, the Raging Cajun. It's the economy, stupid. James Carville has been on a harangue about this the last couple of weeks in different interviews, basically saying, get real, people. And he talked specifically about Manchin. He said, look, Joe Manchin is in a state where they have not a single county has voted for a Democrat president since 2008. What do you expect from him? And I think that's right. And Carville has been saying a lot of what I've been saying, which is you got to find the things you can do and get them done and stop trying to be so transformative. That's the word I've been using a lot. Carville made a point, and I thought I'm assuming his numbers are right. He said 11% of the Democratic Party is progressive, but 70% of the noise coming out of the Democratic Party is progressive. And it makes the Democratic Party sound like we are way too far to the left. So I just think you and I talked about before, we've got to get more realistic about what can be done here. I go back to the comment I made to you last week about Mitt Romney, when he said Biden and his supporters need to understand Biden was elected to stop the crazy. He was elected to get rid of Donald Trump, not for some great transformation. So I just think there's a lot going on inside the Democratic Party that if they would just buckle down and find those things they can agree on and get them done, it would make more sense, at least to me. But then you know what? I'm just a guy who blathers on the radio, so what do I know?
You know a lot. Come on, don't undersell yourself.
Before I switch to the Ukraine, I want to say in politics just for a quick second, and I don't like to talk about Donald Trump. He's gone, and I just wish we never talk about him again. But he has been in the news a bit this week. First of all, fascinating story from, I think, the Washington Post, that as the January 6th Commission is gathering some documents in the National Archives, it turns out the National Archives has had to scotch tape together some of the documents from the White House because Trump had a habit of ripping up his documents and throwing them away.
Yeah, that was pretty good, huh? Yeah.
And they've had to, people would scoop them up off the floor, all these little pieces, and take them out and then get some scotch tape and try and put them back together. God, what a world we were living in. And then Trump this week says that if he were to be president again, he would pardon those people who were charged with January 6th offenses. And even worse, he has suggested that the biggest protest ever should occur if people aren't nice to him. And although he used the word protest, I can't help but have flashbacks to January 6th.
This underscores, Howard, and once again reminds people just what the game plan is for Trump and his supporters. And when I look at this and hear that, when you say you pardon, people who were involved in January 6th, that's, of course, a wide statement. There's a lot of people who are involved in it. There's different degrees of criminal behavior, perhaps. We leave that to be determined by others. But, clearly people have agreed that even people who participated said that was wrong to do that. They get some sentences. Some of them are minimal, but they're being sentenced, okay? When you have Lindsey Graham come out and say it's wrong for Trump to say this, that's, I don't care what you think about Lindsey Graham because he seems to blow with the wind a lot of times, but he's a Trump supporter, a Trump acolyte, many would say. This is wrong. You're already saying you committed a crime, and I'm going to pardon you. And he's done this already, with people who have been convicted from his administration or his friends' administration. He's pardoned them. It's a total disregard for the rule of law, and that's a strong tenet of our democracy. So that's indication of where he's coming from, and not that it surprises many people. Yet his supporters see nothing wrong with that, and that also underscores the danger of democracy in this country. People are going to say, "Oh, you don't like President Trump. You don't like what he stands for." No, I I stand for democracy. You know, we're reporters, and I've said this before on your show. I really value, for example, the freedom of the press. And when I go to other countries, when I went to other countries as a journalist, and I see what those reporters have to do a story, how their lives are in danger, ergo Mexico, you know, I value the freedom of the press here. And that freedom of the press, like the right to bear arms, and like all the other freedoms we have in the Bill of Rights, is why this is the great democracy most of the time, much of the time, and why it still needs to be worked on to be better. And when you hear stuff like this from any elected or former elected leader or any individual in this country, that's a threat to democracy.
Yep. We're talking to Tom Scudieri, our national correspondent. Tom, let's take a minute or two to talk about the story we talk about every week, which is the Ukraine. Those of us who are old enough to remember the Cold War, I felt echoes of the Cold War in the Security Council at the UN this week, as U.S. and Russia kind of went at it over the issue of Ukraine.
Yeah, yesterday there was a meeting on the Security Council, and basically the U.S. ambassador, she said, it's your behavior. You know, those of us who are old enough, as you say, can remember Adlai Stevenson when he was the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, telling them, I'll wait until hell freezes over for your answer. And this was the Soviets, you know, about the missiles in Cuba. And so this is a similar tone, as you're absolutely correct. You know, we've now engaged in the 21st century version of it, where you have the internet and all sorts of social media and hacking to shape public opinion and shape your dialogue in this. So the Russians' approach is it's been the West provoking us, threatening us, Ukraine is threatening us, et cetera, and we're just defending ourselves. And they made these demands that, you know, no NATO membership for Ukraine, pull back troops, et cetera. Demands that you basically know, well, that you suspect won't be met, I should say. Okay, I don't know that for sure. But in the West, the United States particularly, and other nations in Europe, have pushed back on that, saying, no, you know, you guys have put 100,000 plus troops on the border of Ukraine, putting some more in Belarus now. You're doing all these provocative actions, and you're moving blood supplies to the front line and you know, hospitals and food trucks. What do you think we're supposed to do, or how we're supposed to react? And so there's this war of words, indeed, going on. But negotiations are still talking. You know, I think today or tomorrow, Secretary Blinken's supposed to again talk to Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, on the phone to see where things are. Russia apparently has responded to the U.S. response, written things. So it's really bad. And it is like the Cold War, and much like the Cold War, I think, I feel, that, you know, the wrong miscalculation, either accidental or deliberate, could trigger something wider. Now, the Pentagon continues to insist, yesterday as well, you know, no U.S. troops are going to go to Ukraine. NATO says that as well. So in that sense, Russia could invade Ukraine, but pay the price of what the Ukraine military will do to it, and of course then economic sanctions. Is that enough to dissuade them or not? I don't know.
And that's the big question. I don't know. Who does? You know, how far does Putin want to push this?
And I wonder if even Putin knows.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. The State Department ordered employees, U.S. employees in Belarus, to get out of the embassy yesterday, right?
Yeah, the relatives of them. Yeah, the staff will stay. The diplomatic staff will stay. You know, key members of the staff, but the families were ordered to leave, much like they did, I guess, 2 weeks ago now from Ukraine. Yeah.
Right. So it's the tensions continue to grow, and we'll continue to follow it, I guess.
I can feel the tension at the briefings yesterday. You know, you can see people. The Pentagon probably knows more than they can say, and I understand that, and I'm not being critical. But you know, we could feel kind of like the edginess there at the Pentagon because they don't know what Putin's going to do.
Well, as you said, maybe Putin doesn't know either. All right, Tom, I appreciate it. I wanted to get into the Super Bowl, but I don't have time because I got to move on. Maybe we'll talk about the Super Bowl.
We got next week. We have a week bye, right?
Exactly. So we'll get into that coming up next week. Good talking to you, my friend. We'll do it again next Tuesday. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Tom Scudieri, our national correspondent. He is a Pentagon reporter. He is an award-winning reporter for, among other things, USA Today. He's an international foreign correspondent. He's been all over the world covering all different kinds of stories, and now he is with us here on the Watchdog Morning Show. It's 8:32, 28 till the hour. Going to shift into out of the national scene and into the local and statewide scene as we begin to get a better idea of what the May primary election is going to look like. And again, I keep saying primary. It will be to a large extent a primary, but also a general election, for example, the Ohio County School Board, or all the school boards. So we're going to get into that issue coming up. And Teresa Torreseva, who announced her plans to run for the State House this weekend, bit of a surprise, will be with us to talk about why she made that decision and what she'd like to accomplish. That's coming up here on the Watchdog Morning Show. It's 8:33, 27 till the hour, 27 degrees at the airport, 19 here at my home studios as the Watchdog Morning Show moves on for a Tuesday.
Now it's time for your local news headlines from 7 News.
All right, Biffy, we should have Teresa coming up in the next segment. And I'm going to see about more coffee. I'll be back in a minute. Okay. Okay, I'm back. All righty. Before I get to her, I'm going to ask you a question, which is, if I were to ask you, what do you think about Nazis, what would you say? I'm hoping your answer is they're bad. just cluing you in here, okay? So,
is easier, and with one tab, you have access to recent push notifications. There are more ways to watch and find video. To get the new WTRF-7 News app, just update the latest version or download the WTRF-7 News app in your Apple or Google Play Store by searching WTRF.
CA House Music has all the gear to make your music legendary. With all the best gear, including Fender, Epiphone, Yamaha, and more, CA House will have you rocking in no time. Get the most for your money with everyday low prices. And we meet or beat internet pricing. Play before you buy and let our product specialists help you pick out the instrument that's right for you. CA House Music, supporting local musicians since 1872. Play music for life.
The timeless sounds of polka live here. Join us 9 to 11 a.m. on Sundays for the Polka Showcase with Rich Biella. Sunday mornings never sounded so good.
Great conversation continues now on the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe.
It's going to be a warmer day today, up to around 46. We're at 27 at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. Feels like 19. Here at my home studios in the Elm Grove section of Wheeling, it is 19 degrees, and it feels like 14. And it's 22 degrees at the Robinson Auto Group Studios, downtown Wheeling, in the heart of the Ohio Valley. Winter storm watch in effect, coming in later this week and staying through Friday morning. National Weather Service is calling it 3 to 6 inches of snow or ice. Our friends over at the Big 7 are saying more likely ice in our area, not so much snow. We'll be keeping a close eye on that for you over the next several days. And as time goes by, it may change. But Winter Storm Watch officially kicking in later this week. Biff, before I get to my guest, I have to ask you a question.
Okay.
Because to me, this seems fairly simple. If I were to ask you, what do you think of Nazis? What is your answer?
I would say short answer, and immediately the first thing that came to mind, bad people that did horrible things to other humans.
Nazis are bad, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, but sometimes judgment calls are appropriate. I don't understand how anybody answers the question, what do you think about Nazis? Any way other than they're bad. I mean, to me, and to do anything other than that, to tap dance around it, is to imply that maybe you don't think you're bad. Now, I'm talking about Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. There was a neo-Nazi demonstration, I think it was in Orlando, over the weekend. And, well, first of all, one of his advisors was asked, would you or the governor like to offer comments on it? And his advisor began by saying, how do we know they're even Nazis? Maybe they're Democrats pretending to be Nazis. God help us. Just God help us. So they asked DeSantis himself, yesterday at a press conference, how do you respond to the neo-Nazi demonstration in Orlando? What do you feel about these Nazis? And why don't you just not say, Nazis are bad? Why can't you just say that? Oh, no, you're trying to smear me. You're acting like I've got something to do with it. I'm not playing your political game. Stop it. Just stop it. Nazis. All together now, Ron DeSantis. Nazis are bad. How hard is it to say that? And yet he couldn't say that. He had to tap dance and sing and swing and go all around it, and it's, I'm not playing your game. Nazis are bad. I don't get it. It seems like such a simple question. You know, but in life, certainly in politics, there are a lot of questions that can be answered with some tap dancing, or can be answered in sort of a, well, yes, sometimes no kind of way. But what do you think about Nazis? Seems to me, Nazis are bad is pretty much the only answer you give. And to quote Forrest Gump, that's all I've got to say about that. Bit of a surprise this weekend in the upcoming May primary. I've been watching closely to see how the delegate races were going to shape up, because we've changed the way we elect delegates in West Virginia now. Everybody is a single delegate district. We redistricted the districts. What had been the Ohio County 3rd delegate district is now into at least 2 districts. Used to be Sean Fluharty and Erica Storch ran in the same district, and they were the 1-2 candidates, but this time around only one delegate could be there. But they divided, the redistricting divided those districts up. So Erica Storch had a district that was separate from Sean Fluharty's. Sean finally on Friday announced he was running for that House seat. I was waiting to see what he was going to do. Some thought he might run for the state Senate, but he decided to run for the House seat. And I still get confused whether it's 4 or 5. But he decided to run re-election to his seat. And Erica Storch had announced she was going to run for her seat. It looked like she might be out there all alone, until we discovered the local lawyer, Teresa Torreseva, had filed papers via mail to run against Erica Storch. Teresa's with us this morning. Good morning, Teresa.
Good morning, Howard.
First of all, let me ask you a critical question. What do you think about Nazis?
I adopt Biff's explanation. It goes beyond bad people. They're bad people that did horrible things to other humans, and it's never hard.
I don't understand why people can't just
It's
say
stunning.
that.
I can say it. And it's not political either. It is human, and that's why I liked what Biff said, because he pointed out that they weren't just bad people. I mean, you know bad people, but sometimes they don't always act out. They acted out, and they hurt other people. And, so I enjoyed your story before that in terms of, well, I guess I didn't really enjoy it, but I enjoy your description of what's going down. It just seems politics has gotten to a state where you can't just talk about what's real and what's good for people, right? And that's what I enjoy about what you're pointing out in your segment as I was waiting to come on.
You have been in the periphery of politics. You've had candidates that you have campaigned for. You've had candidates whose campaigns you have managed. You are always offering opinions about the political arena. What made you move from an observer and an outside puppet master, if you will, to jump into the ring and run yourself? What brought that about?
It's a great question, and I'm not sure I can give a one or a direct answer. Let me say, without giving details that don't matter too much, but it's very personal. The age of my children, for example, my youngest now a freshman in college, where your business is. As you know, I run a law firm, and we have 4 lawyers at Torreseva Law and a diverse practice representing people. And so a lot of it has to do with, can you run, right, in your personal life and in your work life and in balancing it all. For me, the timing had been right, but I'd also, as you mentioned, not a newcomer to politics, but a newcomer as a candidate. So it feels very, very different, Howard. And I'll have to tell you, just the process of putting your name on the ballot is, it'll humble a person. So here we are. But I'm excited. I'm really excited about it. But also, it really, the redistricting in West Virginia that you mentioned, creates opportunities in the district where you live, right? So to and to compete in the race head on with another candidate instead of being in a mix. And so the dynamic is entirely different in terms of deciding whether to run or whether not to run. I've also watched with interest how that's been affected statewide. But now we'll have 100 delegates, and our race, Howard, is District 4, and it encompasses most of Ohio County, Elm Grove, where I think your home studios are located and broadcasting from. It basically doesn't include downtown, and it doesn't include the island. And we're figuring out the exact specifics of where that line is drawn house by house, as you could imagine. But it's very defined. I think it's going to be good for the districts ultimately to be able to get that individual specific head-on attention, and to at least here in the Northern Panhandle. So that's actually the short answer. Why are you running, Teresa? And Howard, I'm going to tell you the most exciting reason why I'm running, and that is that there has been and there is a growing energy statewide in the Democratic Party to recruit candidates and to get people on the ballot, in the conversation, affecting things and having an impact instead of, as some have told me, just talking about it. I laughed when you said I have lots of opinions, right? So you have all those opinions. What can you do, or what will you do? And so, it's easy to criticize too from afar. Very easy to criticize from afar, and harder to go and do. So I have decided, Howard, to accept the challenge to at least try to go and do. But first, the campaign.
Yeah, well, let me skip past the campaign for a minute, then I'll come back
Sure,
to that.
sure.
But
Absolutely.
Let's assume for a moment that you were to be elected. As a Democrat, you're stepping into the lion's den. I mean, the Republicans are in a supermajority in Charleston. They have complete control of everything, and they have no compunction about using that control the way they want to. A lot of very right-wing conservative bills have been coming out, and I think more will be coming out here in the next week or two. Were you to be elected, and again, I want to go back to the campaign in a minute, but I'm not jumping the gun, but were you to be elected, I mean, you are really stepping into the lion's den.
Which is where I've worked my entire adult life as a litigator in the courtrooms of West Virginia, Howard. I do agree with you 100%, and where you're coming from with that question is accurate reality. But I will say to you that I would approach it, if I were to be elected, I would approach the job. I would find a way to get things done for the people of my district. I would find a way to work with independents, with Republicans. I would find a way to find something that we agree on that's good for people and that people need. Because, first of all, I'm going to be a delegate from Ohio County, one of two, by the way. There are two districts in Ohio County now, District 5 as well. If I were to be elected, I'm not going to change the entire state government, right, in 1 2-year term with that position. But if I can just begin to affect and doing some things, nothing bad and some things good for our district and for our state, I think that starts to move things forward. And the other thing, Howard, is balance is needed, right? Your question points out how much perhaps a different perspective, a contrary voice. West Virginia isn't all red or all blue or either, in my opinion. I know, of course, it's not all blue. We're considered nationally to be this red state politically, meaning Republican-dominated. But, Howard, I think the independents dominate in West Virginia. And I think that's the kind of attitude that I will take. I'm a Democrat, but I have a lot of very distinct views that surprise some of my friends nationally as a Democrat, like my position with regard to the Second Amendment. And so, Howard, it's a great question. It would be a hard job, but I think more than ever that what's needed is someone that will go to Charleston and fight for the Northern Panhandle. And I'm not suggesting we haven't had that, but we always need that, and we need it aggressively. And I think it's someone that has to try to find a way to do what you can and to minimize harm if you see harm coming to the people of your district.
Teresa, as a litigator, you are used to, I guess negotiating is the right word, you're used to finding some common ground and so on, but also knowing you you've got some pretty strong convictions, and there are some times when you just sort of, I don't say stomp your foot, that's a bad phrase to use, but you just decide, nope, this is where I'm standing and I'm not moving off of this. Can you be that way in a Republican-controlled legislature?
Yes, I think that no matter who you are or what you think, if the people elect you, first of all, I think you have to be true to who you are. So as you say things, I'm actually chuckling at some of the questions because I am a bit of a known entity. It's not this, well, we're just Teresa Stand, right? I'm out there with it. And so I think I have to be true to what I believe and what I think. But that said, Howard, I also have to listen. And that's the humbling part that comes like so quickly is you realize it's not all about you or what you think. So you do have to bring your ideas and your principles to the table, but you also have to represent people who disagree with you. You have to represent, if you're a Democrat, you have to represent the independents and Republicans and vice versa. So I think that's how I would approach it.
Let me ask you a question, I guess personal, if you will. There's a huge time commitment to being in the House of Delegates. You have been on the outside looking in, as I have, for a lot of years, and you know how much time it takes to be a delegate. 60 days in the session, another 30 days or so, usually with interim hearings, and then special events, and you're always sort of on call anyway. You have a thriving practice. Yes, you have a lot of assistance from assistants. See there, an S at the second one. You have a lot of assistance from assistants, but it's a huge time commitment. Are you able to give that time commitment?
Yes, and Howard, that was the main question that I asked myself and that we asked as a family, and that I can tell you that I've explored extensively with the other lawyers at Torres Save a Law that are absolutely partners in what we're doing at the firm and in agreement going forward. What I can tell you is no one does anything alone, and I have a community of people and a team of people behind me supporting this decision. Frankly, that's really the answer to your very first question, why? And the answer is because of this team of people, because the support is there, because I see the need, that is why. And that exists at the law firm as well. And so I will also ask Howard, being a legislator is, for a lawyer, it's synergistic. It goes right with, especially if you're a litigator, it's sort of what we already do in the courts, but you go and you write the laws that you're arguing about or trying to apply in the courts. And one of the things that I'd like to see is for it to be easier for anybody to be a legislator, no matter your job, right? It's easier because I'm a lawyer. It fits with the work that I already do. It's the reason lawyers are generally more politically active than a lot of folks in society, because we get benefit in our careers from being involved in politics and being leaders in government and in community, and right, it all makes sense. So that's one of the things I would like to see, Howard, is you're right about that time commitment. Now, let me say, there are also already laws in place that help with that time commitment. And one of the things that I am very excited about potentially, and I'm kind of kidding, but there really is this ability, if, for example, if you have court during session, a judge has to continue your hearings, your trials, those types of things. I've never been involved with judges in West Virginia that wouldn't, and they don't need that law to tell them that, right? But so is it a time commitment? It's huge. And it's one of the reasons when I said I decided to do this when I mentioned that my youngest of two children is a freshman in college. That's part of the trade-off. You do have to have the time to go and do it. Your family needs to support it. You're gone in Charleston. There are expenses to being in Charleston, and there are costs to it. But in terms of Howard, I don't mind telling you, and I think it's relatively public, or at least publicly known, that I had also considered and was being recruited to run in other races. And this is my home district. This is where my law office is. This is where I've lived for 20 plus years. My kids were schooled. I've been raised nearby in one county south in Cameron. And So there's some of that, but really, Howard, at the end of the day, when you come back to it, everything I do is right here in the district in Ohio County, from our VOBO properties, because that's our sort of retirement plan, to running a law office, to running for delegate in the district. I think when you keep things sort of tight and local, at least when you're a newcomer like me, because I'm a newcomer as a candidate and I have a ton to learn, I think that helps you step into it and manage it better for the people you want to serve.
This has been a good backgrounder conversation this morning, Teresa. I'm running out of time. We haven't even talked about some issues that maybe are first and foremost in your mind, and I do want to talk about that, and maybe at a later date I want to talk too about, you're running against the woman who has always led the ticket in Ohio County, and that's Erica Storch. So I said I want to skip past the campaign, get to Charleston, but we have to come back to the campaign at some point. I'm out of time, but maybe we'll do this again sometime in the near future, and I know we'll be talking to all the candidates as time goes by, but we'll get you back if that's okay with you.
I would love to, and I look forward to more in-depth on the substance. Howard, thanks for giving me a chance to sort of introduce myself to your listeners who may not have already met me or know me. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Teresa. All right, Teresa Torreseva, the lawyer with a gun, that is decided to run for the State House. Always been circling around the political world, commenting on the political world, helping out in the political world, now jumping into an actual candidacy. We'll be talking to pretty much all the candidates as time goes by, so stick around for that. Stick around for Brad McElhaney and I talking about unemployment in West Virginia. That's up in the next hour on the Watchdog Morning Show.
The Watchdog is FM 98.1, AM 1600 WKKX Wheeling, FM 97.7, AM 1370 WVLY Moundsville.
News. I'm Sherry Preston.